Okay, well, good morning and welcome back here. It's hopefully you had a good winter break, and I do welcome you to put into the chat any highlights or things that you did over winter break. Feel free to do that, put that in at that point. But again, welcome back here, new year, and we want to finish out this trimester here. So we have a couple of weeks left of the trimester before we move on to trimester 2.2. Okay, so again, feel free to put things into the chat. I know myself got to dust off the ice fishing equipment and did some ice fishing and managed to catch a few fish. Go check out the Eagles down there in Wabasha and spend some good time with the family, and of course get caught up on some schoolwork as well. So again, hopefully you had a really good winter break here, whatever you may have done. Okay, so with that, just want to start here. Perhaps this is not going to take that long. I usually say that, and then I end up taking a little while to do that. But again, welcome back. And so just kind of talk a little bit about what the next couple of weeks are going to look like here. This week, we'll finish up the Great Depression, and you should be working on the impacts of the Great Depression, looking at different groups. And we'll talk a little bit more about that piece there. And then finish up by doing just a little mini unit on the Second World War. It's something that we haven't done in a little while, but since Ms. Ida and I have decided that we will do the internal assessment now in year 2 as opposed to year 1, because the complexities that distant learning has given us, we have opted that we were going to do the historical investigation paper in year 2. So if you sign up for the second year, we will be working on that paper then. And so that frees up a little time, and we'll focus on the Second World War, and we'll look at it from the lens of the Americas, and more specifically the lens of the United States in that Second World War. And that will take us all the way to the end of the trimester, which is January 21st. And so when I say we look through the lens of the United States, we will not necessarily get in the nitty-gritty details of the various battles and strategies and all that stuff that goes with it, but just focus more on, why is the United States getting involved in the conflict? And so we're moving away from neutrality to war. Take a look at the impacts that it has on some human experiences of various groups in the Americas, and then also take a look at the some issues like the atomic issue. So that's what we have there. So that's just a little preview with that. And I did send out a notice as well that if you are missing any work, you can still turn that in. You have till January 19th, which is a Tuesday. So whether it's summative or formative, please get that stuff in so we can end the trimester strong. Okay. So for the remainder of our time today, I want us to really dig a little bit more into the impact. I have a little video clip here that highlights a little bit of perhaps artists, but also women, and then see if there's any questions that need to get clarified about the impact of the Great Depression. All right, so as I'm getting ready here for that clip, feel free to chime in if you have any questions or concerns. Put stuff into the chat again, what you may have done. Okay. Okay, now a little backstory before we get into this video clip here. One of the initiatives of FDR's New Deal was to get artists, writers, photographers involved in the sharing of the Great Depression experience. And this clip here, and this was federal project number 1, and there were various layers and levels to it. And we can go around the United States, even in our own state, and we can find some impacts or some remnants of their work. For writers, one of their big signature pieces was the slave narratives. For artists was the various murals that they had painted on buildings throughout the United States, and we can find them still. But then also in terms of the photography, in this video clip is going to spotlight Dorothea Lange, who really changed the image or how we view the human experience and how we viewed the Great Depression. And we would see these in studios or even in a contemporary magazine of that time known as Life magazine. We would see some of these photos in it. And I like this little piece here too. When we started this unit, I had talked about the long dark night, and Gordon Parks, who was a person from St. Paul, a young St. Paulite, and he is African American, but he will use photography as well to help him get through this difficult time, and also transition to have a very successful career in photography and film in that industry as well. All right, so I got a little video clip here. As always, some takeaways here. How does this in some ways reflect the Great Depression? How does this reflect impacts perhaps maybe that the artists and perhaps even on women as well? So here we go.
In 1933, the year President Franklin Roosevelt came into office, was one of the bleakest years of the Depression.
Just looking out the window of her studio, Lange saw soup lines. I wonder to what extent the conditions propelled her out of that studio. There were new things to photograph, new ways to use her camera.
Dorothea challenged herself. As she recounted, the discrepancy between what I was working on in the portrait studio and what was going on in the street was more than I could assimilate. So I set myself a big problem. I would go down there, I would photograph, I would come back, develop, print, mount, put the images on the wall, all in 24 hours, just to see if I could grab a hunk of lightning.
When you're working well, all your instinctive powers are in operation, and you don't know why you do the things you do. Sometimes you annihilate yourself. That is something one needs to be able to do.
She had developed some negatives, but had accidentally left one negative undeveloped in the film holder. Sturtevant went into the darkroom to develop his own work. He develops it, brushed over to her, awed by the composition of her innovative white angel bread line.
I changed my outlook. I changed my way of living. I made some decisions on what I thought was a good way to be a photographer. And I saw certain possibilities.
Dorothea finds a soup kitchen that is handing out paper bags that have cheese and sandwiches, and she goes in, and there are women. For social reasons, they couldn't be on a breadline. An early photograph Lang took is mended stockings. What you see is the fine, fine detail that shows how many times the woman has mended her stocking.
The sense of the silk stocking, which can't be replaced, that must be mended. All the signs of how people were having to stitch things together. Nothing could be disposed of in this time. And for Dorothea, this is really the intimate look that tells us about social experience in the Great Depression. Lang was already practiced in looking at individual faces. A motto that she had pinned on her darkroom wall, the words of Francis Bacon, the contemplation of things as they are, is in itself a nobler thing than a whole harvest of inventions. And she took this quote and thought one could see it even more with bodies.
Okay, very, very powerful, just those little 4 minutes there. Very powerful message about, in this case, Dorothea Lange, the power of photography in the imagery that she focused on, and in how that, in some ways, reflects what's happening in the United States during that time. Now, a lot of that is on what we'll look at the front end or in the middle part of the Great Depression. Now, on the back end of the Great Depression, we know things are going to get better. And when that Second World War happens, some of those images and those lines and all that stuff will go away. But looking at that video clip, is there anything that kind of stood out? Put it in the chat or unmic and share your quick thought. Anything, some of the images or anything that kind of resonated. That's a good point that was brought up in the chat here. Women couldn't get into the bread line, and you think about here are social norms. And social norms come into play here. Why do you suspect, and I threw out social norms, so why do you suspect women couldn't get into the bread line? They alluded to it a little bit. Again, maybe throw it in the chat or on mic and share your thought. Why couldn't women get into the bread line? Again, if we throw out social norms, the image of the middle class perception of how the family structure looks, or how traditional values are. Women are not the bread at that time. Women are not viewed as the breadwinner. Men are, and so the men are the ones that are supposed to be looking for work, and so they're the ones who might be standing in the bread lines at the soup kitchen, getting a meal as they are looking for work. And so here we look at women and perhaps the type of burden that they bear, things that they hold, things that they carry, and stuff that perhaps maybe isn't expressed verbally, but you can see in a physical sense here or through some of their actions. And Dorothea Lange is able to capture that in some of her photography. I think, one thing that kind of stood out is the mending of one's silk stocks, and the importance of just trying to hang on to. You can't throw it out. You can't go and get new ones, but also a sense of dignity that goes with it as well, of just hanging on to it. And I think when we look at that generation and what they had to endure to get through the Great Depression and then through World War II, carries over, and in some ways is going to create some contrasts as we get into a consumer era of the 1950s and 60s. So a lot of things there, and I've just went off on a huge amount of tangents there as well. All right. So with that, your assignment is looking at the impact of the Great Depression. And so with this particular assignment, do we have any big overarching questions or concerns related to it? This is a summative piece here. And so if you're having some hang-ups or some concerns, here's the time you can share. Unmic or unmute yourself or put it in the chat if you have any questions about this. So, when we look at the group lists that exist for these individuals, and the required information that goes with it, again, you're going to be able to find some of the information partial, or you may not find anything out at all. And so what you want to do is you want to just try to find as much information out there that can give you the most complete story of the impact of the Great Depression on those individuals. So, is every group on the list going to have a place where they are found? May not necessarily be directed, like women. It's going to be, and I'm thinking that question is focusing on geography. Women is going to be all across the United States. But if we're going to focus on Indigenous people, well, Indigenous people will tend to live on Indian communities or reservations, and so they may not necessarily be all over the place. I think of my grandmother, Virginia Claire Felix Newcomb. She was born down in around Morton, Minnesota, which is the Lower Sioux Reservation, but she moves up to Mendota. But Mendota or Bedote is going to have an Indian community where she is going to associate more with. And so you're going to find little pockets here and there of Indigenous people who may not necessarily be living on the reservation or on the communities. So remember, if you're working with someone, make sure that everyone's going to get credit. So names need to appear on it. Remember, you're focusing on 3 groups, and one of them has to be women. And you can see, you pick your grade, how you want it. Just because you're working towards that A may not necessarily you're going to get that A, but it's going to at least put you in the hunt for getting an A. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so as questions do arrive, please send me an email, send me a note, or show up to office hours. I'd love to answer any of your questions or concerns with that. Hopefully your transition back will go smooth. And hope you have a wonderful day. We are done.